want you to first introduce yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Kenza Dawkins. I go by Coach K.
Okay. Now, we're going to get into this AI. We're just going to dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be presenting today.
So if we want to talk about AI specifically, we're at the co-ed. So what's coming up, obviously, is we're offering some free cohorts and free workshops this year to create, an AI innovation space within the community. So Mr. Pinnell is allowing, this amazing opportunity for me to come in here and just teach members and tenants, and at least once every quarter, or maybe even twice, depending on, the energy that we receive from this or the feedback that we receive from this. We want to invite the public in. And that's just essentially, my research has determined that we don't have enough of that, right? There is a lot of high-end courses being offered by Ohio State, but very specific. You take the class, you graduate, that's that, but there's no constant support. So if you begin a project, right, you're almost dependent upon YouTube, Udemy, or maybe what you know about ChatGPT to might complete that. So we're changing that. We're changing that in that we're making it more accessible, and literally just being part of the space and being a member, which, as you saw the amazing place today.
Definitely
then
amazing place.
You get free AI workshops, and obviously that's important.
Now, the center, I first just want to say, it's a beautiful center.
It is amazing.
Anybody that comes here, you say, what's the name of it again?
It's the Columbus Co-ed.
The Columbus Co-ed. This place has art. It's a manufacturer for clothing.
40,000 square feet.
40,000 square feet, event space, offices everywhere. You got writers that we got to meet downstairs. They have a full studio. We saw artists working on projects, photographer. I mean, the place is just
It's
immaculate.
amazing. I mean, there is no other place like it in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
It was invented and developed, in my opinion, by somebody who is a genius developer and really thought about what Columbus needed.
Right.
And I think that goes without saying, because he has jazz bars, the only jazz bars here, and that's what spoke to me really. It's the first space that I came into in Columbus in a network event where I was like, oh my God, I want to be part of this.
Right.
I got up and I was like, I don't want to sound cliche. I thought so hard about what the right question was. I was like, I don't have a question. I just want to know how to be part of this, because it was just so, I didn't know a place like this existed.
Right.
It's like we the forgotten, the people who feel like, there's no support when you try to blow up your business, and all that's doing is you're trying, but you're not really focusing and laser on what you should do, right? We approach the social media in such a like, let me just try this, and you should really laser on what do I need to do, and what steps, what rooms do I need to be a part of, and what community leaders do I need to associate myself with so that I know what's possible in the city.
Right. And this city has a lot of that to offer, as far as the community leaders, the artists, the history, all of that ties in together, and this space kind of embodies all of that. Like literally, if you guys get a chance to come and check it out, because it's definitely an amazing place. But I want to talk a little bit more about your origin story. I know everybody has that light bulb moment. And yours was with technology, obviously. So I would want to ask you, can you take us back to the beginning? Like, what was your specific spark or your realization that you made a pivot from whatever industry you came from to going into this industry in AI generation?
Okay, I can appreciate that. I think my story is probably a lot more different than most, right? I have a background in financial industry. I've worked for a bank for 20 plus years. I'm not, when I started my journey about a year ago, so I can get to my light bulb moment, it wasn't with the intention of leaving my 8 to 5. In fact, you will never hear me at any of my workshops or cohort or posting saying, leave your 8 to 5, leave your 8 to 5. I think that's become sort of like, I don't know, the headlight, like the hook. You know, it's how you're getting people to be interested. I won't be the person saying that for the simple fact that, you know, there's a lot of us out there that are not fortunate to have that 8 to 5, number one. There might be business owners, but in this day and age, in this economy, you know, they're already struggling. So having your base, you know, I didn't put 20 years, you know, at my job just so I can wake up one morning and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm not saying we don't have those moments. I'm just saying you have to have a plan. And so I was in a really good space. In fact, when I began this journey, I was probably in the best space that I was in. My credit was almost 800. You know, I had some cash flow. I was able to travel, get my kids whatever they wanted. But I was what you consider, you know, a middle class family. There was nothing more, nothing to. We were very grateful. We weren't want for anything, right? And I was at that space where I knew that, you know, what I had built with my profile and my reputation, that I can go anywhere and get approved for anything. So what do I decide is, where do I want to invest this money? Which was my, you know, like my original thought, you know. And when you go into that space with self-development, because what clicked for me is life coaching, not AI, right? AI is a tool, and we'll talk about that as to why I'm so driven to use it as a tool for life transformation. And so I start to dabble in these spaces, and really starting off here, because not every community is like this one, and not every community is true community. So I started being part of that, networking spaces, and, you know, I learned what I learned and saw what I saw, and then entered into my first mentorship like October, November. And that just seemed like that was the thing to do. Everybody that came out COVID rich, everybody that had something to say on the internet that was trying to sell something, you know, was like, you know, mentorship. And, you know, anywhere you go, if you're talking to the right people, like, you need a mentor. Like, you know, you want to have somebody that's guiding you, that's been there, that's done that, or that is willing to go get the answer for you. But to make a very long story short, I failed at that a couple of times. And the reason why is because I didn't know any better. You know, I'm again entering this new space. I've been working corporate for 20 years of my life. So not only did I not know what I was swimming in, I also was very shocked and surprised to see how our friends, our people who are calling for these community, how they were truly hustling us, right? And for me, what was a wake-up moment before my light bulb moment was seeing retirees, you know, utilizing their 401k money, or, you know, people who just lost their job but to use their maybe their severance money, or the only savings they've had, entering into these spaces, trusting that that these people who look like they made it because of their internet stats are going to help them. But that was further from the truth. So self-development then became career development, then became drive, then became mission. And I would say probably about halfway through the year, I would say sometimes March, April time, I took one of my biggest losses. And when I mean bigger, I don't mean by dollar only, because the dollars are countless when you think about that. I mean the thing that was going to set me for success, right? You know, our legacy, which is what we all should be focused on. And so I paid, you know, a pretty good penny to build my corporate veil, and in trusting that I hired the right people, the right firm, and that didn't turn out to be, right? This is the moment when I started heavily relying on AI, because now I'm depleted. Remember, I started with cash flow with an 800 score. I'm already doubling down. You know, I'm in mid 700s. My cash flow is going down. The credit card is getting higher. The funding, or because I was going for a nonprofit, remember, which I still have a nonprofit. You know, the grants and funding that I was starting and anticipate to applying for so that I can cover overhead and launch the program, it was not happening. So it took a tank. Okay. And so AI was something I relied on, because I left, it was better than Google, right? It was better than Google in that it helped me figure out, number one, What did I pay for? When did I get? That was my moment of like starting to be like, okay, I'm not spending another dollar. I'm not spending another dime. I'm not doing any of this. I'm going to learn myself. First of all, what is this? What? And because of that, I now learned all these things that I didn't know about. And it literally sort of took off from there. All of this to say that I didn't decide to be an AI and life transformation coach until I started to see the results that I was getting.
Okay.
So I'm not going to preach to you that AI has made me hundreds and thousands of dollars. You're not going to hear me talk about that because I'm just kicking off my coaching, right? What I will tell you is that how it was able to save me from drowning in recovery and having the mental to get through, because now I'm aware, now I know, now I can take these steps to keep building my ecosystem, to then being like, man, I'm a life coach. I've been life coaching for free for all my life. I was like, but the one thing that kept me, right, the one mentorship that I did join, it was people out of New Jersey. Out of all of the calls and the challenges and all of this, the one thing that kept me was those mindfulness calls. It was those clarity challenges. It was those mirror challenge. It was that heavy talk conversation about self-esteem. It's the things that we avoid. It's the things that we don't talk about, right? And I said, okay, I want to do that. I want to be part of a community. Like so it was a little bit by little bit by little bit, and then boom, I finished life coaching classes that I was taking for me, and I said, oh, I can get certified in this. So I started going a little crazy. Emotional intelligence, we'll talk about that another day, is what was probably a lifesaver. It was like, wait a minute. Emotional intelligence plays a bigger role than most of us know, because if you understand it, then you're not going to be in your feels about what people do. If you understand it, you're going to know how to move, and it saves you a lot of heartache and feelings. And we know that we're not our best when we're not operating, with a clear mind and peace. So the light bulb moment was for me is like, man, as long as you learn the tools and you know what you're doing and you're willing to put the forth effort, it helped me essentially get to a point where I was confident enough to say, I don't have to leave my job, right? I want to change the narrative so badly. Like I want to do something better other than what every influencer and claiming that that's stealing people's money, really, because it's not for the long haul. Like, it's not for the long haul, and if you're not impacting people, right? So yes, the drive, and it's become more apparent in this last 3 months than any other time that AI, I don't care what it is that you do, life transformation, if you're a cook, if you're in wellness, what it is, AI has become the one thing that you cannot get rid of, and it is definitely not replacing you, but it is the person learning it that knows about it, the fluent in it, the literature in it, that's dabbling with it, will take your job, right? And so that realization, not only for myself as a person who can't get comfortable in my 20-year job, I'm also thinking about that. I mean, that was really the original thought. Is like, I've been doing this 20 years. The world is changing. Life is changing. We're bringing AI. I need to be on that wave to ensure that I'm always ready. So whatever changes come in your workforce, you're able to dabble with it. And so that's really the light bulb moment is, okay, I'm gonna do this. I want to do this, and I have this huge, like, it's a mission driven thing. It's not money motivated. It's very much so like, I'm going to change this narrative about you got to have 5 figures to learn something, or this narrative about the myths about AI, and how if you don't jump on this ship now, you're going to get left behind very, very, very quickly, and middle class will then become non-existent, right? Because you have all these people moving at this speed,
right?
And then you have everybody who's stagnant, who's still, we have to change that.
No, I mean, that's completely true. And, you touched on something about life coaching. A lot of us will hire coaches for our kids for baseball, basketball, whatever it may be, but we don't hire coaches for ourselves.
Yep.
So that's something that, people need to open up to looking, do a little bit more research on, because just like we hire for our kids to get better at what they're doing, whatever sport, we can hire life coaches to get better at life and keep us, more focused on the things that we really want to accomplish and take to the next level. So I'm glad that you do that for people, because a lot of us really need it and we don't think that we need it. But that's something that, especially coming into this new world using all this technology, having that understanding of yourself first and then expanding to other areas in life, you can have somebody kind of help you navigate through that space. And I think that's why this is really great.
I think I want to touch on life coaching and one more thing that I just thought about. The space that I was very surprised when I first decided to get certified and do some trauma and all that was during the time I was setting up my nonprofit. And I'm very heavily, supportive and serve justice impacted individuals and families. So OVP, which is the Office of Violence Prevention, has an ecosystem that we'll again talk about some other day. But one of the things within the ecosystem, so you have hospitals and youth and community service and outreach and all these things, is life coaching. And they have all these organizations, and I won't name the organizations that fall underneath that provide different type of resources and assistance on ground as it relates to violence prevention. And none of them had life coaching. Like, there was the one out of the 13 or 14 entities or requirements that were within these ecosystem, which to me didn't make sense, because you're getting funding, right, for prevention. And what you just said is super important to that, is because as adults, number one, we've never been taught to have a life coach. We've only been told that you got to go see therapist. And a lot of us are turned off by that until you realize what therapy does for you.
Right.
Secondly, more people, more black men, I think, would be opposed to getting a life coach than getting therapy. And the reason I say that is because there's this taboo thing about therapy where, you think, oh, you're going to tell a stranger about your problems or your thing. Whereas when you're thinking about a life coach, you're entering that space into, I need somebody to manage my life, which, as a life coach, I can't do what a therapist does. In fact, as a life coach, I need a therapist, right? Because, depending on how empathetic you are, taking on other people's. But I found it to be extraordinary, really, that life coaching did not exist in that space, when those are probably the people who need it most. You're coming from incarceration, you're doing your very best. Not every person who commits a crime, wants to go back to committing a crime. Not every person who did time and committed a crime really intended or wanted that life either. So you have people coming out wanting to do more, wanting to do better, but they don't have that thing like life coach that is literally could just hold you, whether it's a mentor to hold your hand or give you the mental reassurance, right, that you can do this and you will do this, that life is always going to be lifing, but at the end of the day, it's always worse somewhere else. So yes, life coaching, I think, is underrated. We need more life coaches, and we need people to take their life seriously, because you can't manage a family at all, even to the point to think to put your kids in coaching, if you're not yourself having someone else overseeing your life.
No, that's really, yeah. Like you said, we gotta look inside ourselves. Some of us need therapy. Some of us need life coaching. Some of us need both.
A psychiatrist.
Some of us need psychiatrists, definitely. I do want to touch a little bit more into. I know in this type of industry, AI, it can be a scary thing. I want you to speak about if you've ever hit a wall of resistance or had any skepticism, and tell us about a time where you might have walked into a room where a person or people were afraid of AI and expressed that to you, and how you managed to flip the script, on that.
Well, the funny thing about that is my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, refuses to use AI. And the truth is, I've yet to break that into her. However, I can be transparent about that and speak on why and understand why she is afraid of AI, so I can understand why others that I may not talk to. And her thing is, she heard about the water consumption, which is a real thing, but there's so much conspiracy theories, right? And it's no different than a vegan, person who doesn't like to wear animal fur. So I had to respect her, thought process, but at the same time educate. So there is a lot of things that people are afraid of, things like security, number one thing. But there are things that you can do to avoid your information. The knowledge is not power unless you use it, right? So at the end of the day, whether that's water consumption, how they're creating AI, whether that you're afraid of losing your business idea to somebody else because you're using AI. But let's be real, like, if you wouldn't put your social security number on your Facebook post, why would you put it on AI, right? It's common sense, really, right? It's the understanding of what it can do versus what you shouldn't want it to do. Like, some people will be like, okay, like, it's going to fully guide me, tell me what to do, but you will and can fail if you aren't checking on that, if you're not. It has hallucinations. That's a very valid fact. Like, a lot of people say that. It's a valid fact. But that's why you have to know prompting. That's why you don't use just one tool and you validate the information that it's giving you on another tool. Because at the end of the day, a project that can take you 2 weeks can be done in a day. So you have all the time you need to validate the information that it's giving you. So there's a lot of fears. There's the fears of one of the main questions I get asked is, how much does it cost? How much does what cost? The membership to Chat, to Claude, the automation we need to set. How much what cost? And versus, understanding and starting to use the tool. Let's just say you have no capital, no cash flow, maybe no money, or you're starting from scratch. That's why you use Chat. I have zero capital and I have a business idea. How do I do that? Right? And I think that what's keeping those same people from paying that $20 a month is, let's say your business is successful, it's already going, you live in, but you could do better, That $20 a month could be the difference between you making 100,000 and scaling to 1 million. I'm telling you, right? Because you're taking away from the functionalities that ChatGPT, let's just talk because that's what most people, that's not the end all for all, but you're taking away from all these uses that you can make happen. For example, I have a virtual assistant. I have them do things when I don't have the time, but a lot of people can't afford to pay for that. You can save yourself some money by having, a virtual assistant, or maybe by not having 5, by having 1 or 2, by utilizing these tools. So a presentation that they were making me 8 months ago, 9 months ago, so I can go on my nonprofit discussions, it better only take 10 minutes. I'm messaging like, hey, what's up? Like, that was an hour ago. Are you done? Because my expectation is I'm paying for the system, the software, and I'm teaching you. So I need production. So if I'm doing that as this little person, what do you think all the other companies are doing? They don't want to pay people for 8 hours and 6 hours to create a presentation that takes 5 minutes. They don't. The other fear that I hear, and again, it goes back to knowledge, is I can't use ChatGPT inside of my company. True, but that doesn't mean you couldn't build your own system. Doesn't mean you couldn't create, and it's so easy and it's simple, but people think it's, oh my God, like thousands of dollars. Right. Depending obviously on how big your company is, there's AI solutions that you can still utilize internally, right? You don't have to have, my job cut off ChatGPT, a while ago, because naturally, if you're, you don't want to put customer information in there, you don't want to release, any type of conflict of interest can happen. So naturally, yes, you wouldn't want to. So that's probably the biggest thing is for small businesses or organization or corporation that know they need to go ahead and make that move, but they don't know how to make that move because there's all these AI tools, is because they're not really understanding all the possibilities and all the strategies that you can implement. They're not understanding that you go buy and pay for a service. They don't understand APIs. They don't understand that literally you have, a code that's assigned to you and only you that has access to that AI, right? Like, it's the lack of knowledge and the lack of education surrounded, and it's like no other thing in the internet when it happens. You see all the people using it, you're like, but you don't really know how successful they are, because again, we don't really want to believe the internet. What we want to do is try it ourselves. What we want to do is produce ourselves. What we want to do is take 30 minutes and take that free course that I'm sharing in my school community. And like I tell everybody, YouTube University is literally probably best to you once you know what you're doing, right? So like, let's just say you come and take a workshop, and again, you don't want to pay for extra private classes or master classes and all that, but you now understand just enough to be able to go to YouTube, right? Because YouTube is an ocean. But if you're it's no different than Google, which is how I learned automation. None of the classes I paid for university, they don't really teach you everything. No, you learned the possibilities, you learned the functions, you learned what you can and cannot do. And beyond that, you have to be curious enough to be like, let me see what other people are doing. Where's it that what I found, I was lost 3-4 days, probably no sleep, because I was so glued, like, oh my God, this is how they're doing it. This is how they're doing it. But you then think, and you do some research analysis, and you're like, only about 13 and 15% in the world is actually even using AI to make some waves from it. We can talk endlessly about the things that people say, but I was very shocked that when I had a classroom of 40 people, that 80% of them was downloading ChatGPT for the first time. That was shocking.
That is shocking. Especially, I've known about it for at least the last 2-3 years. As soon as I heard about it, I downloaded it.
And I'm not just talking about random people.
Yeah.
These are business owners.
Yes, yeah.
They came from another community that they were already invested into. They made the decision to dial that call and dial on to see what we were talking about. So it's not like, we're not just talking about random people. We're talking about people who obviously had interest and taking that opportunity. And all I talked about was ChatGPT and what it can do. And they were mind blown. It really triggered me in a way that was like, wow, like it was a reassurance. That was probably a further light bulb moment for me. That was like, oh, okay, I'm in the right space. This is not just needed. This is an absolute necessity, right? I'm not ever going to be able to say everybody knows beginner AI and we're not going to be able to move. Like, this is exactly where I needed to be. And I have to absolutely change this fear of knowing how to code, right? Just because the output from ChatGPT looked confusing and whatnot, but it's the drive of like, man, if you can read, I promise you can probably create your own landing page or your own website.
Right.
I want to get rid of every WordPress website out there, and I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying that if you want control, if you want next month to change something on it, if you want
that customization,
if you want, every week to make a change that you have an event going on, right? Like if you have to be hands-on. Like I'm respectful of convenience. I'm respectful of people that don't have the time. And so they are like, let me just pay you to do it. That's cool. But I'm even interested in making sure that they know. Because it's okay if you have the money to pay for solutions. But how are you going to know which solutions to pay for if you don't know what's available to you?
Yeah. And that's a big thing, because a lot of us don't know what AI offers as a whole. So people may walk into these meetings with you and not even know what questions to actually ask, because there's so many options and avenues and different things that could be placed right in front of you that, we may not know. So
that's why it was important that we do this, right? It was important that we educated people at this level, that we're
Mhm.
not talking all this cool stuff. We can talk about agents and
Right.
automations and you know, passive income and your assistant talking to other people in your sleep and while you're, we can talk about all of that, but understanding the basics, what
Mhm.
AI can do, what all the tools can do for you, you can then have a much productive
Mhm.
conversation or meeting with me to then be like, boom, like, so you were talking about that, and I need to do that here. You don't have to understand the in depth, but you have to understand what you want, what you're asking, and that's another thing about why people aren't getting the same results or better results, because they're not really understanding the most important thing, which is prompting. And that's only really important now, because very soon, the way that AI is going, you know,
Yeah.
being a knowing that prompting will help you just because you search, but it's not going to be needed anymore. It's practically becoming a human. You know what I mean? And being able to produce and just teach people like, okay, I don't get it, and literally just show them like, you hear me talk, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me the prompt that I need to do what I need to do.
Right.
But hear how I'm talking to ChatGPT. Don't be nice to ChatGPT. You need to be rude. You need to challenge it. You need to do all these things. So, and you can't give up, because I know what certain tools can do. I'm not taking no less than, you know, 92% conversion looking post, or you know, less than what I know it can produce. So you keep challenging it, and that's where it really made me realize, like, oh my god, you can be like, man, this is fire, this is everything, and you can be like, are you sure? And be like, well, actually, no, let me go ahead and add on this was, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even think of that. Challenging ChatGPT or your AI, especially the conversation, the one that you're actually getting your business planning out of, it's super important, because again, all the people in the world that are sharing their information that don't have that turned off are feeding into this pool of why it has hallucinations, right? Because it's
Right.
giving you what it thinks. Like, you can ask it a question, it'll tell you, but then it'll give you another answer, and you're like, are you sure about that? It can make mistakes. It absolutely can, if you're not careful. But you're the operator. You know, AI is the machine. And as long as we do that, then you're not going to be so intimidated, you know, by having to log in and using it and see what it can do for you.
And I did notice, like, when we were downstairs, you were mentioning that to the lady, and you was telling her about the agents and how she can use that to help her write
The
her
book
books,
bot.
but keep it authentic, which I think a lot of people, like everything you just said, kind of points to that, where people may feel like, even with the jobs, not letting people use the AI, which kind of negates. I get it, security reasons, things like that, but it could also help some of these businesses expand a lot faster. But before we, wrap things up, I do want to touch on something I know you were talking about earlier, and I know like the landscape, everything shifts so fast. You was even talking to the lady earlier about what we taught months ago may not be the same thing we're going to be teaching, here in the next 2 months. So, with it evolving so fast, if you were writing like the next chapter for, the business that you're training or the actual classes you're going to be doing, what is one human skill that you feel like people need to master to stay relevant in like the AI driven, decade that's going to be coming up to play?
Um, a skill that they need to master is truly, with all of that I said to her, and why it's important to do AI fluency, always have some level of AI fluency and AI literature available at the co-ed, even as we move along and progress and learn advanced things, because more people will come on, right? And so there are two skills I want to talk about. Again, I'm a life coach before I'm an AI coach, and first of all, you must absolutely practice mindfulness with anything that you do. And I'm not talking, you don't have to be spiritual and you don't have to think about manifestations and all that, but it's true. Because my slogan goes, you know, where energy, I'm sorry. The essential wording that I wanted to use is, um, I had a moment of, I dabble in this very, very carefully, right? There's a reason why I'm holding my words is like, there's this spirituality and religion, and like, I didn't want to get into that. But the one thing I want you to know about mindfulness, right, without getting into anything, is your mind sets the tone for your life. Your mind drives your life, right? Your mind is the absolute best friend of yours and your worst enemy, right? And so practicing mindfulness is definitely a skill you have to have. Checking into and knowing emotional intelligence, not just to drive other people, but yourself and how your day-to-day is going to go, because you're not necessarily so worried about the next person who hurt your feelings and it had nothing to do with you. So in order to want to transform, right, your life before we even get to AI, you have to find that community or that thing, right, that helps you keep it. And when you are having a bad day, you have to have this skill to talk to yourself enough to bring yourself back. Like, no, we're not having a bad day today. I know today was really crappy, but like, what do we need to do? Because this is not happening. And you will find that when you believe in yourself enough and you are being mindful, very mindful, that things will, like we take back to back to back all the time, will be better. Every place I have poured my energy into is where my focus remained, right? And as it relates to AI, once you have that figured out, then you're going to look around and you're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to get left behind. Whether you are already retired or whether you're successful or whether you're just starting out or whether you have an 8 to 5, regardless of the fact, our kids that are coming up are going to be in this world and in this space, right? And you don't have to have kids of your own, but you have to think about our youth, right? So the absolute skill that you need to have is the belief, the mindfulness. Everything else comes later, because once you then learn what AI is, you know how to use it, you've tested it out, you know what it's capable of, you go on about your life. And as you're moving about your life, naturally, you're going to be like, oh, I can AI this, right? Like my thing is, how can we AI that? Can we AI that? Oh, no, we might not be able to, but we can AI this. And it's not about, oh, it's the trending thing, or it's because it's the new thing, or it's because it's the easy thing or the fast thing. No, it's about the fact that now businesses can take 2 weeks to launch instead of 2 years, right? It's about... so if you do nothing else, right, understand AI. Don't go to Gemini creating Nana Banana Pro and VO3 videos and figure out, or Sora first because you think it's cool. No, understand how it can change your life, how that business that you've been thinking about marinating for 5 years can launch if you don't have the money for it today. How to leverage... how to save all this time, right? Like, I think that's the key too, is that, if we have our own businesses, right, and you're an owner who may have an employee or two, maybe you're doing it yourself. How do you save all this time by AI in certain processes or SOPs or create things that you haven't had, so now that you can focus on scaling, right? So before you venture into the world of AI and what it can do for you, AI intro, fluency and literature, it's a must. It's an absolute must, because then you're going to be starting here and you're going to be wondering why it's so hard for you and you're not understanding it. And you might just go through the process of spending all this unnecessary money, or, thinking and believing that you're doing the right thing, but, like yourself, but what did you just tell me? You've known about AI 2-3 years? but you're using Gemini and Copilot.
Right.
What that tells me, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're a smart guy. If we were to walk out of here today and I gave you a couple of tools, I have no doubt in my mind that you will figure it out, right? But you're using probably, one that I would never recommend, or you're using what
We definitely had to talk about Copilot.
what is available to us, and you aren't the only person. Why Gemini is because everybody is so used to Google, and just because people are using ChatGPT doesn't mean they're not using it like it's Google, right? And so the same people that are amazed of what it can do for them, like you told you everything about me, imagine how much more amazed if by the time we ended our hour, you now have a whole entire blueprint on how to take your wine company into the next level in 30 days.
Right.
You're going to be
and
like,
while we're
okay.
talking about the wine, how do you like the new
It's
flavor,
amazing.
the strawberry pineapple?
Love it. I love it. I do like it. This is one of my, I don't think I've ever had the strawberry one. Like, it actually tastes like a good fruit, which I love.
That's a strawberry pineapple, but yeah, before we get out of here, I want you to at least tell people where they could reach you as far as, your services, your classes, and, give them that information,
So I created a school community that's SKOOL. It is free. And my hope and mission is that I can get as many people into this space as possible. And that way I don't get lost in the algorithm of social media when I'm dropping game and I'm dropping gems. And, I'm not here to go viral. My focus is that the information I'm working so hard to develop and share, it's reaching the right people. So my school community is Focus Flow Elevation Hub. You can go to either my IG, which is Coach K _AI, and that's K as KAY. You can also go to Kenza Alaoui, that's ALAOUI, and school community is also listed there. We have about 40 people that joined in the last week. We're currently doing a 7-day challenge, and really I was just giving the people what they wanted. Even though I knew that some of my, members were just new to AI, I had to find a way to meet them where they were at. And I kind of enjoyed that because even though I wanted so badly to give them this tool and this prompt, because I know that and I'm being honest about it, like, hey, I'm going to give you this, but I know without a doubt there's 10 other ways better to do it. But if I give you this, then you don't get the basics, and now you never know where to go back to, right? Like you don't know. Like I'm always gonna go use ChatGPT. It's one. I know exactly what ChatGPT can do for me that the others couldn't. But ChatGPT is not where I produce out of. It is definitely what gives you guides. I mean, it can do so much more than that. Using your agents or building workflows, or now the image. That's the craziest thing is, you like Gemini, but I've been trying to do my best to create one of my videos or and I probably tried about 3 different AIs just to get it was the ChatGPT image that got it spot on point. Okay. And so I would have never thought to even dabble with it because in my opinion and in my eyes, ChatGPT, I mean, it 5.2 is like as humanized as you can get. Okay. But from a visual perspective, I mean, there's DALL-E, but from like a visual perspective, I was really downplaying chat. Right. And I said, oh my God, like it wasn't exactly, but I looked like me. That's one thing about me. Mm-hmm. And I think I'll touch on one last thing, right? And this is super important as we go into the June 7 workshop, which is going to be here at the co-ed. Eventbrite link is also on my Facebook page. Is you said something, but you kind of roll over it, and I think it's probably the most important thing when we talk AI is authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. And I am doing everything I can to learn myself, even though I'm not a creator, I'm not an artist. I know this because I have sucked at every Sora video that I have tried to type myself, right? I can be honest about that because right. The artist, the creator, the storyteller, the movie, the actor, all of that can write a way better, again, prompting story with visuals, what you wanted to do. So you're seeing literally a whole movie scene in 9 seconds. You know why that is? Because that same exact creator that writes songs, that develop, that write, they're able, right, if they use their skill with the right tool, with the right thing, create a whole movie, right? You're not taking anything away. Me and you are not the same. The skills that we have are not the same. So we can come out of the same class, learn the same knowledge, but if you're a creator and I'm a coach, you're going to, you don't have to know more than me. You just have to know the skill, the tool, and what to do. You're going to create a mind-blowing video. Mine are so boring, right? They're telling a story. But then when I notice what other people are, I'm very much so relying on ChatGPT. Hey, look at this picture, and I want it to look exactly, I want you to create a prompt that does all of this, the background, the visual. I don't want you to change my face. So I'm, as a non-creator.
That's your creative space. You say you're not a creator, but that's still being
right,
creative
like
in your...
depending on how you think about creation. But I'm not a person who's worried about, yes, I don't want to produce a cartoon character looking at me or a skinnier version of me. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in how to humanize and make this real and use it to develop what I need it to, because I'm not trying to look different. But that does not mean that a person who draws or a person who sings or a person who creates designs on clothing, want to AI that, right? There's the authenticity of, I can draw without AI. Cool. That's totally fine. But where's your business standing at? Are you cool with your clients? Like, I don't want the creators and everybody else to worry so much about the tools that they use for what they're creating, so much so as how is it going to run your business overall? Or for that matter, your next campaign or your next offer. It could just give you the idea and you can go create it. Right? And so that's probably the larger population of smart, intelligent business owners. They got it going on. They got the wits. They ready to scale and go over. But there's this one piece that they don't want to lose, and they don't know how to navigate around it, and that's authenticity. Yes. Right? And so I'll keep talking to people like you saw me do. I talked to the photographer. I said, can I interview you? Mm-hmm. I said, because there's a lot of consultants in the graduating class that I came out of that are pursuing AI photography. Because, all of us have a niche, even though it's all AI. And there was a fear and a concern about people raining in their parade because they don't have all these, they're not photographers really, but they're coming out with this amazing, photography. It's costing people less money because, you're looking like a goddess. I'm not saying it's for me. I'm just saying that people that are figuring out a way to become things that someone worked 20 years to develop is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of creators. Mm-hmm. And that is something I'm very, very conscious of. And so I will never propose or strategize or give you all these things until I know exactly what do you not want to change? What do you want to keep authentic to yourself? And where do you want to see an improvement in something that for a fact, like, okay, this is exactly it. This is exactly what I needed to take this up to where I need to go, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what? Sometimes it's literally paying that $20 for ChatGPT.
That's a separator sometimes.
I'm just saying.
No,
I had to touch on that.
So, with the beautiful Kenza here today, we sipping on a good Don H, and she has a workshop January 8th. 7th. January 7th. 5:30 to 7:30. 5:30 to 7:30.
1890 East Main Street at the Columbus Co-Ed. Mm-hmm. Definitely follow me, follow and join the school community. I'm much more reachable there in terms of if you have very specific questions. I also offer 15-minute clarity calls. So if literally you just have questions, don't know where to start, or you're doing a very specific thing that you couldn't figure out, you know, I have that option too.
Perfect. All right. Well, there you have it. Future of AI. And I'm proud that we got a chance to do this.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.